think we're all here. Going now, Jim? Okay, well, thanks everyone for being here today for the daily press conference. Behind me here and to my left is an American Sign Language interpreter, Katie Peterson from Rapid City. So we've added that to our conference calls. So every morning at 10 o'clock, myself, the department directors for the city, some city council representation, county commission representation, and emergency management have a meeting to discuss the strategy and the ongoing response to the COVID-19 situation. This update is largely from each morning's 10 o'clock meeting, with an addition of some general comments following. So here's the update. Our city fire department and ambulance service calls appear to be trending downward. There's no formal comparison been done yet, but this is the observation of the first responders. However, in those calls, the appearance of respiratory symptoms appear to be trending upward. Some comparison will be done to see if it's a temporary glitch or if there's some real trend here, and we'll report on that at a later time. It's pretty common that the citizens appear to need more clarification on the emergency city ordinance that was passed Sunday night and will be back on the agenda tomorrow night at a special council meeting. I would recommend the best way to get clarification on that is to go to the city website, which is rcgov.org/COVID. And there is a link at the top of that page with access to the city ordinance, and it is spelled out very simply. And I want to remind everyone that this is not an ordinance that distinguishes essential from non-essential businesses. That language is not used in the city ordinance. So more communication efforts will be made about the ordinance and its effects as time goes on. Last night, the Rapid City Police arrested a robbery suspect and now have cleared all of the recent robbery cases that we've seen over the last month. So that's good news. I just want to add that methamphetamine was perhaps a related component to this. It's 2020, and I feel embarrassed to bring up that this could possibly have a drug connection to ease everyone's fears that it would not be a typical average everyday citizen driven to crime by the pandemic. At the airport, there are very few flights coming in and out of Rapid City now. And in fact, today, United just canceled their Rapid City to Denver route. Today. Concerning access to city parks, some porta-pots have been added to city parks. And we just announced a day or two ago that we were opening back up the restroom facilities at Memorial Park, and now we've changed our mind already, and we put porta-pots there. The reason being, primarily, the porta-pots are much easier to disinfect. They won't allow for people to congregate in them, and we are, in fact, balancing a public health issue between the spread of the virus and the homeless who have nowhere else to use bathroom facilities and may use them or may do so inappropriately in public places. Tomorrow night, Friday night, is a special city council meeting right here in these chambers at 6 o'clock p.m. And there will be two things on that ordinance. The first thing will be the second reading of the emergency ordinance closing and regulating certain businesses. The second item will be the first reading of the first ordinance revision for that emergency ordinance. I don't mean to confuse you, so I'll explain it differently. A week ago, we crafted a city ordinance to respond to this ever-changing crisis. That requires 2 readings with 5 days apart, so tomorrow night we're having the second reading. So in the future, if we find an imminent reason, an urgent reason to change the ordinance, rather than go through 2 more readings 5 days apart and be a week behind in responding, we're proposing to amend the ordinance to allow future changes to be made by resolution. So that will be the second item on the agenda tomorrow night. Council member or council chamber audience will be strictly limited, that we will have chairs placed 6 feet away from other chairs in all directions. We may put tape on the floor. We're going to allow the chamber to be filled up, even though it's probably not a great idea. If you don't need to be at this meeting tomorrow night, have a physical presence here, don't. Email in your public comment and it will be read. Otherwise, if you must come to City Hall, understand there's going to be very few of you allowed to sit in these chambers. There'll be an overflow down in the lobby and where we may call a name over the intercom to have you come up and present to the council. There's no authorization in state or city law to allow us to have a private meeting and come out of that meeting and impose restrictions on the community. And the reason, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that the meetings have to be open meetings, but we're trying to adapt to the changing circumstances of the virus. Our strategic teams that we have been putting in place will report their weekly progress at tomorrow's 10 o'clock meeting, and then I will pass any progress on to you in a press conference. Relative to the emergency ordinance, we're finalizing our compliance and enforcement plan for that ordinance. We plan to take action to ensure compliance immediately following the approval of the ordinance and for an undetermined amount of period into the future. So in general, I have a few things to say. It's worthy of saying every time we meet, and that is stay away from people. Just today, the members of the media have a greater distance between all of you than you had even yesterday. This is a habit we all have to get into, and members of the public have to get into. Today I took a picture of a crowd of people sitting together downtown on my way to work. It just has to be different. Do not participate in crowds. If you feel symptoms, go home. And let's be realistic about the testing availability for COVID-19. Not everyone in this community will be tested for this virus. Not everyone who feels ill will be tested for some very legitimate reasons. There's a global shortage of testing materials. It's worldwide. And there may be manufacturers stepping up to assist with that, but at this time, I don't think there's reason to believe we're going to get ahead of that curve. So there's great anxiety in the community over knowing someone sick who was denied a COVID-19 test. That's a fact we're going to have to get used to. And here's why, under the circumstances, it's okay. If you're feeling ill with a fever and a cough and shortness of breath and any of the other symptoms that have been linked to COVID-19, the treatment is no different for you whether or not you have a positive test result. The treatment will be to address the symptoms. And as we continue to hear, a large portion of us, up to 80% of us, will only require self-isolation and monitoring these symptoms at home. For the 20% who do present with more severe symptoms, no medical services are going to be withheld. We're trying to keep ourselves healthy so that the percentage of people stricken with this virus who need professional treatment can get it. Most people will not present with serious symptoms. So I wish for us to get over the anxiety over how fast tests are being taken, how fast results are coming back, how many tests are available. That is in large part a waste of your energy and emotional space. I think we should simply realize that the first and most important thing to do is to self-isolate when you're not feeling well. Call your service provider. Take advice from them on what your next steps are. So moving forward, we're in a very good place today compared to where we'll be in the coming weeks. South Dakota now has 46 confirmed COVID-19 cases. We're going to hear about more tomorrow, the next day, the next week, and the next month. That's the way this is going to play out. So as things worsen, and as we are listening to the experts on modeling, and by the way, your friend who Googled this is not the expert on computer and statistical modeling relative to a virus. But as we confer with the experts on this issue, and we see that the path the virus is taking in our communities is exactly what was predicted, we're going to be able to give you more and more reliable information as time goes on. So there will be a time when we're nearing the peak of infections in our local communities. Leading up to that point, I imagine that all public interaction will have ceased. We will likely not have meetings where we have people in this room. We'll have to virtualize the contact with the media to make sure that we're getting out relevant information, but in the safest and most reasonable way. So this is the beginning. We may not have fully begun yet, and we need to stick together. There will be plenty of time for finger pointing when this is over. So for right now, let's disregard rumors. I can tell you for a fact, the virus was not patented by Bill and Melinda Gates and was not released purposely by any government official. There is enough nonsense out there to make a sane person go off the deep end. Let's don't go there, okay? Questions from members of the media today?
Governor's press conference earlier acknowledged that she has received a letter, but she basically said the mayor has my cell phone number. About the communication between Rapid City and government in Pierre.
The communication is there. We are mainly the recipient of information from the state. I realize that the governor of a state has hundreds of city and county and state officials that all may want a piece of that governor's time and attention. So I am not texting or calling her regularly. I'm trying to respect her duties and the scope that she has within the state. I think the questions, as we're being proven, as we're seeing proven time and time again, the questions we have on Monday may have been answered organically by Wednesday. So some of these questions, as I think the email was traveling from Rapid City to Pierre, may have been answered already with the governor's press conference this morning. So she acknowledged the letter, and they will answer the remaining questions, and we appreciate the cooperation with the state.
Staff here. Reduction of services.
The layoffs have only been of part-time individuals at the Civic Center. We have a number of seasonal park employees that may not be brought back this year. So those may technically result in a layoff. But the city financial analysis for the government organization has various components. There are city departments like water and sewer and garbage that make all of their own money through user fees. So those will largely be unaffected by this economic downturn. But much of the city's general fund budget, about 44% of it, is made up of general sales tax. So the sales tax reporting is slow. It always is, always has been. So we would need a minimum of a couple of different sales tax submissions from the state, which would take place over the next 6 weeks or so, I imagine, to really give us a picture of where our sales tax revenue is heading. So the tougher city budget questions will be made at a later time, perhaps in the tail end of spring, where we'll know a better picture about what we can expect for losses. There's no doubt that the city revenue is down millions of dollars right now, just in user fees and obviously taxes. I assume we're going to get a bit of a spike in sales tax from all the hoarding, the irrational purchasing that's been going on, but that certainly will have a rebound effect. So more info later, no firm decisions right now. We do have an employee support team that is working on settling policy decisions on benefits and work arrangements and hours and equipping eligible employees to work from home. And our HR department is all working really on that one task at the moment. We have a hiring freeze within the city where we have few exemptions. Those exemptions are public safety, water, sewer, and garbage. And so more with every week, more info coming next week. I believe the Civic Center number was in the 20s. I think the number of parks employees that may not be hired back, at least immediately, this season could be in the several dozen category, and including recreation. That would include perhaps pools and other things of that nature. But so I would say still probably double-digit numbers now, all part-time, and more and detailed and ongoing assessment will occur. They may. The question was, are the city council members going to be here or call in remotely? Last week they rescinded a prior resolution which had some limitations on audio attendance to public meetings. So I'll let you know tomorrow night if some of them are calling in or not. Yes, especially our paramedics, but generally speaking, all first responders are equipped with protective equipment and procedures to keep them safe while they're providing services to others. Other questions? All right, thanks everyone, and be sure if you're watching online to check back. We're going to attempt to have the same press conference time each day, 1:30 p.m. And thanks for attending.